What is up, everybody? My name is Dan, and in this video we are talking about the big mistakes that campers make with tents. So as an example, this tent here is set up properly. I knew it was going to be in a video that was going to talk about a tent being set up properly. So I spent some time on this, making sure that it was set up properly. I mean, all the doors are taut, the rainfly is taut, it's staked properly, it is solid on a location that is flat, no water is going to come through here. We're obviously in my backyard, so that makes a big difference because I've set up countless tents back here, so I already knew that ahead of time. Let me show you what it would look like if you didn't stake out this tent properly. Let's take this corner as an example. The tent obviously is set up correctly, and the stake is in the ground correctly. There's a lot of debate on how you should put a stake in the ground. I'll just show you what you don't want to do, and then anything past that is going to hold your tent just fine. What you don't want to do is angle your stake towards the tent like this, and you don't want to have it sticking way out of the ground. The deeper you can get your stake in the ground, the more holding power it's going to have. And you want to at least stick it straight up and down and as deep as you possibly can, or even if you angle it back like this, it's also going to hold very well, and it's going to make sure that that tent stays stable all night long. Now, obviously every tent is different. Every manufacturer is going to have different recommendations on how you should set up a tent. But what I try to do if there's a tent that I don't have directions for and I'm out there, or it's been a while since I've set it up, is a general rule of thumb is I try to follow the way that the seams are on the tent, because that's going to guide me as to how I want to pull back on the tent to make it as taut as I possibly can. And then another thing you want to make sure is, if you do have a tent that's got poles like this one, is that the seams are at the very least really close to where the poles are at, because that's how that tent's been designed, and it's going to provide the most strength, and it's going to make it so that if there is a big windstorm, if something does happen, it's the least likely scenario where that tent is going to rip, because those poles are meant to go along the seams. So if you find that it looks off, where there's big wrinkles in the fabric like this, or the poles are off the seams, you're going to want to readjust those stakes appropriately so that it helps mitigate that problem, and then that tent is going to look great and it's going to last all night long and not cause you any problem. Okay, before I tell you about the next mistake, I need to tell you about something that I've been doing for the past 3 years, and it's through a company that I've been waiting to sponsor me for the past 3 years, and they're finally sponsoring this channel and this video, Element Drink Mix. At higher elevations, I tend to get altitude sickness, from headaches to dizziness to just a lot of other problems. So a friend of mine 3 years ago recommended that I drink Element. I can vouch that it replenishes me in ways that I never thought possible, way better than water, and it almost completely removes every effect of altitude sickness when I'm out there. Element is a zero sugar electrolyte mix that gives you sodium levels that are 2 to 3 times the government recommendation. Each pack that you put in your water has a dose of electrolytes free of sugar, artificial flavors, and other dodgy ingredients. If you click on the link in the description and you purchase Element, you'll also get a free sample pack with any order. Also, if you buy it and you end up not liking it, they'll give you your money back. There's a no questions asked refund. So I'm super excited to vouch for this, 3 years in the making. So click the link in the description below and please buy some Element. Thank you, Element, for sponsoring this video. Yes, I know that seems obvious, but I can't tell you how many people I've camped with and hiked with who are new hikers who literally set up their tent for the first time when they get to their campsite. And then they're just looking at me, Dan, come set up my tent. And then I laugh at them and I say, no, I actually help them out because I'm a nice guy. It makes me mad. So make sure you set up your tent at home first. You'll know how to set it up when you get to camp. You'll know how to quickly set it up at camp. So that way, if you're about to hit a storm or it's getting dark, you can get that tent set up quickly. You can get your stuff inside and you're just good to go. And you know it's set up properly. And you know it works. Okay, so as an example, let me show you what it looks like if I were to set up this tent with the doors open. So first off, this is the rainfly of the tent. If I have the rainfly door open during the setup, that's not the end of the world. Typically rainflies will still be taut around the bottom because it's the bottom that is the biggest problem when it comes to setting up your tent. Taut, but the door is open. So the whole idea of this no-seam mesh is to keep bugs out. So make sure you got your doors shut. Get in the habit of keeping the door shut all the time, so that way when you get into your tent at night, you don't have all the creepy crawlies everywhere. Now these are doors on the Rainfly. So if I try to stake out this tent or the Rainfly with the door open, and now I try to zip it up, look what happens. So it's not set up correctly. And if you're a new tent camper, you're gonna look at this and say, you know, it's fine, I'm done, I don't really know what to do anyway. So what you wanna do is make sure that the doors are shut on your Rainfly. Then you're going to put in your stake properly. And if you can, grab rocks to knock in your stakes, because you're less likely to bend a stake than if you use your foot like I just did. But if the ground is soft, it's perfectly fine to do what I just did. But now when I try to open up the Rainfly, it just opens up nice and easy. And the other thing that this is gonna do, if you keep your doors closed while you set it up and you've staked it out properly, the whole inside of the tent is gonna be square and taut and give you all that extra room inside of the tent, versus if the tent was like this because you set it up incorrectly, you're losing all that extra room. So that's one big mistake that people make, and you shouldn't do it. Okay, so picking a campsite out is way more than just trying to find like a level, flat area. You need to be thinking of a lot of different things. How high are you gonna be camping? How low are you gonna be camping? If you camp too high, there's a possibility that you're gonna get blown off a cliff. If you're camping too low, like in a valley, that's where cold air settles. So at night, you gotta consider that it's gonna be a lot colder than what you think. Are you gonna be camping near water? Are you gonna be camping near water that could potentially run through your site? Is the ground that you're camping on soft, like sandy? Is the ground that you're camping on hard with a lot of rocks to the point where you can't even get a stake in the ground? My guess is that you wanna sleep on level ground, you wanna be comfortably warm at night, and you wanna make sure that you aren't gonna get wet. So, couple things. First off, make sure you're camping at a reasonable distance from water. If you camp too close to water, what's gonna happen is there's probably gonna be lots of bugs there. I know it's really tempting to camp close to water for the beautiful scenery and all that stuff, and many times I do, but I always consider how fast that water is flowing, and I do look for lots of things like algae and like cattails and different things that attract bugs, and I try to stay away from those areas. Like that bug right there. If you end up camping in an area that's really sandy where the ground is soft, you're probably gonna have to find some rocks to hold your stakes in, and you probably can get the stake in the ground, which is gonna help, but a big rock on top of the stake is gonna make a big difference. Now, if you're camping in an area that's so rocky that you can't even get your stakes in the ground, having a freestanding tent or a semi-freestanding tent like this is certainly gonna help in that situation, but you're probably still gonna need to find rocks to at least sort of anchor the stake on top of the ground to at least hold it down if a storm does come through. Also, if you wanna experience like a beautiful sunrise in the morning, or you are afraid maybe if the sun hits the tent, you're gonna bake in the morning, then make sure that you sort of understand where that sun is going down and where that sun is gonna come up in the morning, so that you can kind of gauge how you wanna set up that tent. Also, try to camp where other people have camped. So look for campsites that are obvious campsites. That's gonna do a couple things. One, it's gonna make it really easy for you to set up camp, because that's probably a good location to set up a campsite since so many people have already camped there. But then also it's gonna leave the least amount of impact on the entire area, because all that impact is contained to that one campsite. And then lastly, you're gonna wanna look up. If you are camping under a dead tree, that can be a problem because storms can blow those down. Look for dead branches, that's pretty obvious. You don't want those falling on your tent. And then also, if you are camping near, let's say, a rocky hill or a rocky mountainside, pay attention to those rocks if they're coming down the hill. Sometimes if you're real quiet, you can hear rocks tumbling down. You don't want to be so close to where rocks are going to come tumbling down and hit your tent either. Matter of fact, this last backpacking trip I was on, we heard rocks tumbling down the hillside that was next to us, and we should have considered that the night before, but we were so eager to get to camp that night, we just neglected to do it. And we got lucky, nothing happened, but you could definitely hear even small pebbles and rocks coming down all night long. Hey, real quick, I want you to come camping with me. Yes, I actually do want you to come camping with me. In August of 2024, I'm gonna be going to Banff National Park in Canada, and there are 20 spots available. They are filling up extremely fast. I think there's already about 9 that have already filled up. Last year we did this in Yellowstone. That filled up super quick. So if you want more information, click the link in the description below right here and check out how we can go camping together. It's gonna be awesome.